AITA for walking away after my girlfriend chose her ex over me at a family reunion? I'm Anthony, 35, and until a few weeks ago, I was the boyfriend who kept telling himself patience was the same thing as maturity. Leah and I had been together for almost 4 years, long enough that my coffee mug somehow always ended up on her side of the sink, long enough that her favorite gray throw blanket lived on my couch, even though she complained every time I used it. Long enough that we had duplicate phone chargers, shared grocery lists, and an ongoing argument about whether the thermostat should stay at 68 or 70. Long enough that I had bought an engagement ring. I kept it in the least romantic hiding place I could think of, behind a box of old tax papers in the back of a closet. Leah hated dealing with paperwork, so I knew she would never look there. Every once in a while, when she was in the shower or out running errands, I would open the box just to make sure the ring still looked the way I remembered. It was simple, not flashy, the kind she had once pointed out in a jewelry store window and called quiet but beautiful. I thought that described us. Looking back, quiet was doing a lot of work. Leah was warm, soft-spoken, and very good at making conflict feel like a misunderstanding. That was one of the things I loved about her in the beginning. She never slammed doors. She never screamed. If something bothered me, she would touch my wrist, lower her voice, and say, "Don't overthink it." That phrase used to calm me down. Eventually, I realized it also ended every conversation before she had to answer anything. The first year we were together, I barely noticed how separate I was from her family. We had started dating shortly before the holidays, and she said introductions would be overwhelming that early. That sounded reasonable. She spent Thanksgiving with her parents, Richard and Diane, while I spent it with my sister Brooke. Leah called me that night, told me she missed me, and promised the next year would be different. The next year, her family's plans were complicated. The year after that, one of her aunts was going through a divorce, and Leah said bringing a serious boyfriend would attract too many questions. By year 4, I had met Richard and Diane exactly 5 times. 3 of those meetings happened by accident or necessity. Once, they stopped by Leah's apartment while I was fixing a loose cabinet hinge. Another time, we ran into them at a restaurant. The longest visit was a Sunday lunch where Richard asked me polite questions, Diane smiled like she was studying me, and Leah kept changing the subject whenever marriage came up. I had met a few cousins at a birthday dinner, but never the larger family, never the reunions, never the holiday photo sessions, never the backyard cookouts that appeared afterward in casual social media stories full of folding tables, paper plates, coolers, and people laughing under strings of patio lights. At first, there was always an explanation. There'll be too many people. My aunt's house is tiny. My dad gets weird around new people. My mom will ask you a million questions. I don't want you to feel like you're being interviewed. Each excuse sounded small enough that objecting would make me look difficult, so I tried not to object. Leah also didn't post pictures of us. She said she hated performing relationships online, which I understood. I wasn't interested in turning our life into content either. But old pictures with her ex, Colin, stayed up. There were photos of them at weddings, on family vacations, at birthday dinners, standing with Richard beside a grill, and sitting next to Diane at some holiday table. One picture showed Colin with his arm around Leah while half her family crowded behind them. The caption said, "Our favorite troublemakers." I never asked her to delete the pictures. The past was the past. What bothered me was that I seemed to have no present. Once, after she posted a picture of a brunch table where my hand was visible at the edge of the frame, but not my face, I asked, "Are you hiding me?" She laughed as if I had made a joke. From who? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. You're in my life every day? That's not what I mean. She leaned against the counter and folded her arms. Then what do you mean? I mean people who know you would have no idea you've been in a serious relationship for 3 years. That's not true. Your aunt asked if you were dating anyone last month. She's old. She forgets things. Your cousin tried to set you up with someone. And I said no. You said you were busy. Leah sighed. Not an angry sigh. A tired one. The kind that made me feel like I was creating work for her. I don't want to live my relationship for other people, Anthony. I'm not asking to be in every photo. I'm asking why I'm invisible in all of them. You're turning this into something it isn't. That was usually where I backed down. I did not want to be the jealous boyfriend. I especially did not want to be the boyfriend who could not handle an ex existing. Colin had dated Leah for about 6 years before I met her. They had started young, and by the time they broke up, he was woven into her family. Richard liked him. Diane still sent him birthday messages. He had helped one of Leah's uncles with a home repair project and coached a younger cousin's recreational soccer team for a season. Leah called him basically a family friend. Colin still showed up at certain birthdays, graduations, and holiday gatherings. He texted Leah on her birthday and sometimes commented on pictures her relatives posted. I knew all of that because Leah told me enough to make it sound harmless. I tried to treat it as harmless. The problem was never that Colin existed. The problem was that he had a reserved seat in Leah's public life, while I had to ask permission to stand in the doorway. Whenever I tried to explain that distinction, Leah turned the conversation into a discussion about trust. "You know I'm with you," she would say. "Then why does your family act like you're still available?" "They don't. Your cousin asked if you and Colin might get back together." She was teasing. "Your mother invited him to your father's birthday dinner. He's known them for years. And I wasn't invited. That dinner was last minute. Leah, I was sitting next to you when your mom called about it." Then she would get quiet. "I don't want to feel managed," she said once. "I'm not managing you. I'm asking where I fit." That's exactly the pressure I'm talking about. Afterward, I apologized. That became another pattern. I asked a reasonable question. Leah described the question as pressure. I apologized for how I had asked it. The original question disappeared. My sister Brooke saw it before I did. Brooke is 4 years younger than me and has never had much patience for polite denial. At dinner one night, I told her Leah was going to another family cookout without me. Brooke stopped cutting her food. "Again, it's not a big deal. You say that every time. Her family's complicated. Everyone's family is complicated. She wants to introduce me at the right time." Brooke stared at me. "It's been 3.5 years. Is she waiting for a solar eclipse?" I laughed, but she didn't. "Does her ex still go to these things?" "Sometimes." "And you don't see the problem?" "I see it. I'm trying not to make it bigger than it is. Or you're trying to be so reasonable that nobody can accuse you of having needs." I told her that was unfair. She said, "Maybe." Then she changed the subject. I thought about that conversation more than I admitted. Still, our private life felt real. Leah talked about marriage. She sent me pictures of kitchens she liked and joked about which side of the bed I would lose if we bought a bigger one. She said she wanted 2 children, then later said maybe 1, and we had serious conversations about money, family habits, and what kind of parents we wanted to be. One rainy night, we sat on the couch sharing takeout noodles, and she rested her feet in my lap. "Do you think you'll ever get married?" she asked. I looked at her. "To someone in general?" She smiled. "Don't be annoying." "Yes. When it feels like we're both ready. I'm ready for the right person." I remember the exact way she said it. Softly, almost shyly. I squeezed her ankle. "Good to know." That was the night I started thinking seriously about a ring. A few months later, she sent me a picture of one from a store window. "Not that I'm hinting," she wrote. "I bought a similar one after checking the size of a ring she wore on her right hand. I planned to propose the weekend after her family reunion. Not at the reunion. I had no desire to turn someone else's backyard dinner into a public spectacle. I reserved a small table at a restaurant Leah loved. The next morning, I had booked a short photo session with a photographer so we could have a few good pictures afterward, just for us and whatever announcement we eventually chose to make. I paid the deposits, saved the confirmation emails, and told Owen, my best friend, because I needed someone to stop me from accidentally blurting it out. Owen asked one question. "Has she started including you with her family? The reunion is coming up." That's not an answer. I'm assuming I'm going. You haven't asked? She's been talking about it for weeks. She knows I cleared the weekend. Owen rubbed his jaw and looked unconvinced. "Anthony, I'm not trying to ruin this for you. I know. But don't propose because you think a ring will fix your place in her life." "I don't." "You sure?" I said I was. I wanted to believe I was. The reunion was on a Saturday. Leah had talked about it constantly. Her mother was bringing baked beans. One aunt was making too much potato salad. Richard had borrowed extra folding chairs. A cousin was coming in from out of town with a new baby. Someone had ordered matching shirts for the older generation, which Leah thought was embarrassing. I knew all of this because she talked to me as though I were part of the preparation. The week before, I asked whether we should bring anything. She said, "I've got it handled." On Friday night, I asked what time we needed to leave. She was standing in front of the hallway mirror, trying on earrings. She paused. Actually, I think I'm going to go by myself. I thought she meant she wanted to drive separately. Why? She took one earring out and tried another. It's just going to be a lot. I know. And there are some family dynamics I don't want you dropped into. I looked at her reflection. She would not look back at me. What dynamics? My parents are stressed. My aunt is already fighting with somebody. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I've met your parents. That's different. How? She pressed her lips together. That was when I noticed her dress hanging from the bedroom door and the shoes laid out beneath it. She had already planned the outfit. She had already decided she was leaving without me. This was not a conversation. It was an announcement she had delayed until the last possible moment. When were you going to tell me I wasn't coming? I asked. I'm telling you now. The night before? I didn't want you sitting around all week feeling weird about it. So you chose for me. No. I'm trying to keep this from becoming a thing. It became a thing when you decided I couldn't go. She turned away from the mirror. Can we not do this? Do what? Turn one family event into a referendum on our relationship. I stared at her. One family event. You know what I mean. I really don't. She walked into the bedroom and placed the earrings on the dresser. I followed but stayed near the door. Is Colin going to be there? Her shoulders tightened. That was the answer before she said anything. Leah. Yes. Was I ever invited? My parents didn't specifically say you couldn't come. That's not what I asked. She sat on the edge of the bed. Colin has been coming to these things for years. My family still feels comfortable with him. And they don't feel comfortable with me because they barely know me. It's more complicated than that. Then explain it. She rubbed her forehead. My family still thinks Colin made more sense for me. The room went very still. I waited for her to say she disagreed with them, that she had told them to stop, that she had made it clear I was her partner. She didn't. Instead, she said, I don't want a night to turn into a comparison. So I'm not invited because your family might compare me to your ex? Please don't make this about your ego. That sentence changed something in me. Not because it was the cruelest thing anyone had ever said. It wasn't. She said it calmly, almost gently. But I suddenly saw the trap. If I accepted being excluded, I was mature. If I objected, I was insecure. If I asked why her ex had a place I did not, I was jealous. There was no version where Leah had to explain why she was allowing it. I kept my voice level. Did your parents actually ask you not to bring me? They said they didn't want tension. Did you tell them I wanted to be there? They know you're not really into big gatherings. I've never said that. You get quiet around people you don't know. Most people do. And Colin already knows everyone. That's because you keep bringing him and leaving me home. She stood up. This is exactly why I didn't want to talk about it. Because I'd notice? Because you take everything personally. It is personal. I'm your boyfriend. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I'm not asking to prove anything. I'm asking why I'm hidden. You are not hidden. Then bring me. She said nothing. A few seconds passed. I asked, does Colin know I'm not coming? Leah's eyes moved toward the kitchen. It was such a small reaction that I might have missed it if I had still been trying to win the argument. Instead, I watched her. What did you tell him? I asked. I don't owe Colin an explanation about you. That wasn't my question. She picked up her earrings again. I need to finish getting ready. For tomorrow? I'm trying things on. You've already decided this discussion is over. I'm not going to fight all night. Neither was I. The next morning, Leah moved around the apartment as if everything had been settled. She made coffee, asked whether I wanted eggs, and commented on the weather. I answered politely. She seemed relieved. At around 11, she put on the dress she had chosen, curled her hair, and stood in front of the microwave door checking her reflection because the light was better in the kitchen. I sat at the table watching her put on lipstick. You look nice, I said. Thank you. She smiled cautiously, like I was finally behaving correctly. Her phone was face up on the counter between us. She went down the hall to look for the earrings she had decided against the night before. The screen lit up. I did not touch it. I did not pick it up. I did not unlock it. The message preview was large enough to read from where I sat. Colin, are you sure he knows I'll be there? I don't want to be the reason your family thinks you're choosing me again. For a second, I thought the worst part was choosing me again. Then I focused on the first sentence. Are you sure he knows? Leah came back into the kitchen. I pointed at the phone. Why would Colin think I knew he'd be there? Her face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. She crossed the kitchen in 2 quick steps, picked up the phone, and held it against her chest. You weren't supposed to see that. There are sentences that answer more than the question you asked. That was one of them. I did not say anything. Leah looked at the screen, then at me. He's just trying to avoid awkwardness. Why would he need to ask whether I knew? Because he knows you're sensitive about this. Did you tell him that? I told him there have been conversations. What conversations? Anthony, I'm already late. Did you tell Colin we're serious? She gave me an exhausted look. Of course. What exactly did you tell him? This is not the time. Did you tell your parents I wanted to come? I'm not doing an interrogation before I leave. Did you tell Colin I was invited? I said I was handling it. Handling what? Her voice sharpened for the first time. Everyone's feelings. I nodded slowly. That was when I understood. She was not managing an awkward situation. She was managing people. Me. Her parents. Colin. Probably her friends too. Each of us had been given just enough information to keep us in the position she wanted. Can we please not do this right now? She asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something inside me go cold. We're not doing anything, I said. What does that mean? It means I understand. Understand what? I understand. She stared at me, waiting for the anger she knew how to redirect. I did not give it to her. Go to your reunion, I said. Anthony, you're late. She hesitated. Then she walked over, kissed my cheek, and said, we'll talk tonight. Please don't spiral. She picked up her purse and left. The door clicked shut behind her. She thought she had postponed an argument. She had no idea she had ended the relationship. I sat at the kitchen table for several minutes without moving. The apartment sounded different after she left. The refrigerator hummed. A car door slammed outside. Someone upstairs dragged a chair across the floor. My coffee had gone cold. I wanted to drive to the reunion. For about 30 seconds, I pictured walking into that backyard while everyone was eating and asking Leah to explain why her boyfriend of almost 4 years had been told to stay home while her ex stood beside her family. Then I pictured what would happen next. She would cry. Her parents would see an angry man arriving uninvited. Colin would become the calm, familiar person standing nearby. And Leah would have proof for whatever version of me she had already sold them. So I called Owen. He answered on the second ring. Aren't you supposed to be at the reunion? I wasn't invited. There was a pause. What happened? I told him everything, including the message preview. He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, do not go there. I know. Do not call Colin. I wasn't planning to. You were thinking about it. I was. Don't give her a scene she can use. Give her facts she can't edit. I leaned forward and pressed my palm against my forehead. I feel like an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're late. There's a difference. I bought the ring. I know. I was going to propose tomorrow night. I know that too. I almost married someone who won't let me stand next to her in a backyard. Owen exhaled. What do you need? I don't know. Yes, you do. I looked toward the hallway closet. I need boxes. I'll bring some. Not yet. Why? I need to figure out what's mine and what's hers before this turns into chaos. That's fair. He paused, then added, leave clean, Anthony. No broken stuff. No threats. No essay. Take your things, separate your money, and keep the receipts. A scene helps her, I said. Exactly. Receipts help you. After I hung up, I called Brooke. She answered with loud restaurant noise behind her. Everything okay? No. She walked somewhere quieter. What happened? I gave her the short version. When I finished, she said, I'm sorry. That was not the reaction I expected from her. Brooke usually led with anger. The softness nearly broke me. I was going to propose, I said. I know. You knew too? Owen asked me what kind of ring Leah liked. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Brooke said, listen to me. You're not leaving because of Colin. I know. You're leaving because she made you the embarrassing part of her own relationship. I looked around the kitchen. Leah's mug was in the sink. Her grocery list was held to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a lemon. A scarf she had worn the night before was draped over a chair. I was trying to be mature, I said. No, you were trying to be low maintenance enough to keep. That's harsh. It's true. I did not answer. She continued. If she can build a future with you in private but can't stand beside you in public, she isn't confused. She's comfortable. With what? With getting stability from you and familiarity from him. I don't think she wants him back. That's not the point. She wants the benefit of everyone believing whatever keeps them easiest to manage. I thought of the phone message. Are you sure he knows? Brooks said, if you need permission to exist in your girlfriend's life, you're not in a partnership. You're on a wait list. That line stayed with me. I went to the closet and took out the box of tax papers. The ring was exactly where I had left it. I sat on the bedroom floor and opened the box. For a few seconds, I imagined Leah wearing it. I pictured the restaurant, her hand over her mouth, the photographer the next morning, the call to her parents. Then I pictured myself asking Richard for his blessing or trying to announce an engagement to a family that had been told I disliked gatherings and was not serious. I closed the ring box. Canceling the proposal hurt more than packing. Packing meant I was leaving Leah. Canceling meant I was leaving the version of us I had been carrying alone. I opened my email and found the restaurant confirmation. There was a cancellation button at the bottom. My finger hovered over it. Then I clicked. The deposit was non-refundable because it was less than 48 hours before the reservation. I did not care. Next, I canceled the photographer. She refunded half the fee and sent a polite note saying she hoped everything was okay. I printed both cancellation confirmations using the small printer on the shelf by the dining table. The machine made a grinding noise and pulled the paper in crooked, which felt absurdly normal. Then I started separating money. Leah and I did not have a joint bank account, which made things easier. We split rent and groceries, but several household expenses were charged to my card because I was the one who had set them up. Streaming services, internet, a meal delivery subscription Leah used more than I did, a cloud storage plan, a fitness membership add-on she had promised to reimburse me for and never did. I did not shut off anything essential that day. I changed the payment method where I could and made a list of the dates she would need to take over. I saved copies of the Zelle and Venmo records showing what each of us had paid. I was not trying to punish her by not paying for her life. I was stopping a benefit package for a role she refused to acknowledge. Then I packed. I started with the things that were unquestionably mine. Personal documents, my watch box, chargers, spare sneakers, my favorite hoodie, toiletries, books, and the small tool kit I kept under the sink. The everyday things made it feel real. The phone cable beside the bed. The razor in the bathroom drawer. The chip bowl I always used for cereal. The old sweatshirt Leah complained was ugly but stole whenever she was cold. I left that one. I reused 2 moving boxes from the storage closet and drove to a hardware store for more. On the way, I kept expecting Leah to call. She did not. At the store, a teenage employee asked whether I was moving. Something like that, I said. He pointed me toward tape and box cutters. When I got back, Owen was waiting outside with the back of his SUV open. You said not yet, he said. I changed my mind. He looked at the boxes in my hands, then at my face. Okay. He did not ask me to explain again. He just carried things. That was exactly what I needed. We worked quietly for nearly 2 hours. I took what belonged to me and left what was shared until it could be discussed. I photographed the condition of the rooms, not because I expected Leah to accuse me of damage, but because Owen insisted. Clean exit, he reminded me. I packed the rings separately and put it in my jacket pocket. Before we left, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a note. I started with 3 pages. I tore them up. Then I wrote 5 sentences. Leah, I saw enough to understand that you have been telling different people different versions of our relationship. I will not argue for a place you have spent years making sure I did not have. I canceled the proposal planned for tomorrow and removed my payment information from the expenses listed here. Please communicate only about belongings, money, and the lease. Why was I good enough to build a future with in private, but not enough to stand beside you in public? Anthony. I put the note in a large envelope. I added the restaurant cancellation confirmation, the photographer cancellation, and a copy of the ring receipt with the payment details and identification information blacked out. I included the expense list. Then I printed a few screenshots from my own phone. One was a message Leah had sent me 3 months earlier. I can see us married. I just need my family to stop making everything complicated. Another was from the night before. Please trust me to handle the reunion. Colin being there doesn't change us. The final one was from that morning, after she left. Love you. Don't let your brain turn this into something ugly. I'll make it up to you tonight. I did not have her message to Colin. I had only seen the preview, and I was not going to pretend I had evidence I did not possess. The screenshots were not there to persuade her. They were there so she could not claim later that I had invented the conversation. I placed the envelope in the center of the kitchen table. Owen stood by the door holding the last box. You ready? No. Good enough. I put my key on top of the envelope, then picked it up again. I'm still on the lease. Keep your key until you sort that out, Owen said. Return the spare she gave you. Don't lock yourself out of a place you're legally responsible for. He was right. I took my apartment key and left Leah's spare key to her car inside the envelope instead. When I stepped outside, I turned back once. The apartment looked almost unchanged. Her shoes were still by the door. The couch still had her gray blanket on it. The lemon magnet still held the grocery list to the refrigerator. Only the spaces where my things had been were empty. We loaded the boxes into Owen's SUV. I checked the time. The reunion had probably been going for about 2 hours. Leah still had not called. I stayed at Owen's place that night. Around 5:30, my phone rang. Richard. I had his number saved from the one time he called to ask whether Leah was with me during a storm. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello. Anthony. His tone was controlled, but irritated. Richard. Leah is upset. I looked at Owen, who was sitting across the room. He muted the television. Richard continued. I'm trying to understand why you chose tonight to make a point. What point? She says you packed your belongings and left some kind of envelope. So she had gone home. I glanced at the clock again. Earlier than expected. I did. This was an important night for her family. I know. And instead of speaking to her like an adult, you walked out. I took a breath. Before I answer that, did you know Leah told me I wasn't invited because your family thought her ex was better for her? Silence. Not the silence of someone preparing an argument. The silence of someone hearing a sentence that did not fit the story he had been given. Finally, Richard said, What? She told me Colin would be there, that you and Diane still felt comfortable with him, and that you thought he made more sense for her. I never told her you weren't invited. Did you think I didn't want to come? She said large family events weren't your thing. That isn't true. She said you preferred to keep your distance. That isn't true either. Another pause. In the background, I heard voices and a door closing. Richard lowered his voice. Leah told us you were not ready for anything serious. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, I was supposed to propose tomorrow. What? I bought a ring. I had a reservation and a photographer booked. Both are canceled now. Richard said nothing. I continued, I'm not asking you to take my side. I'm asking you to stop judging me from a story I never got to answer. Do you have proof of what she told you? Yes. Send it. I hesitated. Owen mouthed, targeted. I nodded. I'll send you the messages that involve the reunion and the proposal, I said. Nothing more. Richard's voice changed. The anger was gone. In its place was something harder to identify. Send them. I selected 4 screenshots. The first showed Leah telling me Colin would be at the reunion and that it would be easier if I stayed home. The second showed her writing, My parents already think you'll be uncomfortable and jealous. Please don't prove them right. The third was the earlier marriage message. The fourth was the cancellation confirmation for the restaurant, with the original reservation time visible. I sent them. Richard remained on the line. His phone chimed in the background. I heard him breathe out slowly. Then he said, I'll call you back. You don't need to. I think I do. He hung up. Owen unmuted the television, but kept the volume low. What now? He asked. Nothing. That was the plan. Nothing. No mass message. No family group thread. No social media post. No call to Colin. I had corrected the record with the person who had called to accuse me. The rest belonged to Leah. At the reunion, the truth had already started cracking before Richard called me. I learned the details later from 3 different people, including Richard, Diane, and one cousin who texted me. The gathering had been held in a relative's backyard. Folding tables were covered with plastic tablecloths. Paper plates were stacked near aluminum trays of food. A cooler sat by the patio. Several relatives were posting short videos and pictures. Colin was there when Leah arrived. He apparently greeted her with a quick hug, then asked quietly whether everything was okay. Leah said it was fine. When Diane asked where I was, Leah told her I was not feeling well. A cousin asked whether I had ever planned to come. Leah said, big family things overwhelm him. That answer sounded familiar because it was the same explanation she had used before. Richard noticed. Later, After Leah checked her phone and saw my first missed call notification had never come because I had not called her, she opened the envelope photograph she had taken at the apartment and started crying. She told her parents I had misunderstood a boundary and used the reunion as an excuse to punish her. That was when Richard called me. After he received my screenshots, he walked across the backyard and asked Leah to come inside. Diane followed. Colin was near the patio door and heard enough to realize the conversation involved him. Richard showed Leah the message where she told me it would be easier if I stayed home because Colin would be there. "Did you tell him he was not welcome tonight because of Colin?" he asked. According to Diane, Leah said, "That's not how I meant it." Richard asked again, "Did you tell him that?" "I was trying to prevent a scene." "What scene?" "You know how he gets." "No," Richard said. "I know what you told me about how he gets." Diane asked, "Leah, sweetheart, what exactly did you tell him?" Leah said I had been insecure about Colin for years. That was when Colin stepped inside. "You told me he knew I'd be here," he said. Leah turned toward him. "He did know. Today. That doesn't matter." "It matters to me." Richard looked at Colin. "What were you told?" Colin did not answer immediately. Then he said, "She said they weren't as serious as people assumed." Diane sat down. Richard asked Leah whether that was true. Leah said Colin was taking her words out of context. Colin pulled out his phone. He did not show them everything. He showed them one message. I never saw it directly, but Richard later read it to me over the phone. Leah had written, "Anthony and I are still figuring out what we are long-term. He's not really at the family stage, and I don't want everyone acting like I'm bringing my future husband." The message was from 2 months earlier. 2 months earlier, Leah had asked me whether I preferred a spring or fall wedding. That was the twist I had suspected but had not yet been able to prove. There were 3 versions. To me, Leah said her family was slow to accept new people and that I needed to be patient. To her family, she said I avoided gatherings, disliked crowds, was jealous of Colin, and was not ready for marriage. To Colin, she said we were not as serious as people thought and that she was still figuring out what she wanted. Each version protected her from a different consequence. With me, she avoided demanding respect from her family. With her family, she kept their approval and preserved their comfort with Colin. With Colin, she kept the door cracked open just enough to maintain his attention and his role. She did not have to choose anyone honestly, because she had arranged for all of us to believe we were waiting on someone else. The reunion ended early. Not with screaming or some dramatic family explosion. People simply sensed something had gone wrong. The food was packed up. The older relatives stopped taking pictures. A cousin deleted an Instagram story that showed Leah and Colin standing next to each other near the grill. Colin left first. Before he went, he told Leah, "I'm not going to be your cover story." She said, "That's not fair." He answered, "Neither was this." Then he walked out. Leah took a rideshare home because she was too upset to drive. The receipt later showed she left the reunion less than 3 hours after arriving. That was when she found the apartment half empty. My phone started ringing at 6:12. The first call came from Leah. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was soft. "Anthony, please come home so we can talk. I know you're upset, but you misunderstood what I was trying to do. Please don't make any permanent decisions tonight." 7 minutes later, she called again. "Where are you? I'm serious. This is not okay. You can't just move out while I'm gone." Then came a text. "You went through my phone." I replied once. "I did not touch your phone." The message appeared on the lock screen in front of me. She called again. The third voicemail was angrier. "I cannot believe you sent private messages to my dad. That was between us. You embarrassed me in front of my entire family." The fourth came 20 minutes later. "You made me look horrible." Not one voicemail began with, "I lied." Not one said, "I'm sorry I excluded you." Not one acknowledged the proposal. She mentioned the ring only in a text after reading the receipt. "You were really going to propose?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Yes." Her reply came immediately. "Then how could you leave like this?" I did not answer. That night, I slept badly on Owen's couch. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the ring on Leah's hand. Not the real ring. The imaginary future I had attached to it. I heard her voice asking whether I preferred a spring wedding. I heard her telling Colin I was not at the family stage. At 2 in the morning, Owen came into the living room for water. "You awake?" he asked. "Obviously." He sat in the chair across from me. "I keep trying to figure out which parts were real," I said. Probably a lot of them. That doesn't make sense. It does. People can mean what they say in one room and still lie in another because they want different things from different people. That's worse. I know. I thought if someone loved you, they protected the relationship. They should. She protected everyone else from having to acknowledge it. Owen nodded. We sat quietly for a while. I did not feel free. I felt hollow. The next morning, Richard called again. His voice was tired. I owe you an apology, he said. You don't know me well enough to owe me much. That may be part of the problem. I waited. We were told you didn't want to be involved, he continued. Leah said you avoided invitations. I never received them. She said you were uncomfortable around Colin. I was uncomfortable being excluded for him. That is not the same thing. I understand that now. Do you? There was a pause. Not completely, he admitted. That was more honest than anything I had heard from Leah. Richard said Diane wanted to speak with me. A moment later, her voice came on the line. We just want what's best for her, she said. It was exactly the kind of phrase she had always used. Gentle words with judgment underneath. I said, you thought Colin was best because he was familiar. We knew him for years. And you barely knew me because Leah kept me away. We thought that was your choice. I know. Diane sounded close to tears, but I did not comfort her. She said, this is not what she told us was happening. That's the issue. We never asked her to leave you home. You also never asked why the man she had been dating for almost 4 years was never there. She did not respond. Richard came back on the line. We would like to apologize in person. I don't need that. Leah wants to talk. I'm sure she does. She says this should be private. Private is where she kept changing the story. Richard exhaled. I don't know what to say to that. You don't need to say anything. We ended the call. Later that afternoon, Colin sent me a message. I had never given him my number. Leah must have shared it at some point, or he got it from Richard. His text was short. I should have asked more questions. I liked being welcomed by her family, and I didn't step back when I probably should have. She told me you knew more than you did. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Colin was not innocent. He had enjoyed being the comfortable ex. He had accepted invitations that should have made him question his role. He had stayed close enough to Leah's family to keep the old relationship alive in everyone's imagination. But he had also been lied to. I did not owe him friendship or forgiveness. I replied with 2 words. Understood. Thanks. Then I deleted the conversation. The practical part of ending a 4-year relationship was uglier and more boring than the dramatic part. There was the lease. There were shared household items. There was a security deposit. There were groceries already purchased and a utility bill due in 10 days. I sent Leah one email listing what needed to be handled. No accusations. No relationship discussion. Just dates, amounts, and belongings. She responded with 3 paragraphs about how cold I had become. I replied only to the section about the lease. 2 days later, she asked to meet privately. I refused. She asked again. I said I would come by on Sunday afternoon to return her spare key and collect one remaining box from the storage closet. Owen would wait outside. When I arrived, I expected Leah to be alone. Richard's car was parked nearby. I almost left. Then I saw my box sitting just inside the open apartment door. Leah stood in the hallway. Diane was behind her. Richard was near the kitchen. Colin stood awkwardly by the patio door with his hands in his pockets. What is this? I asked. Leah's eyes were swollen. They were here talking, she said. Colin too. He came to return some things. Colin held up a small cardboard box. It contained a sweatshirt and a few old framed pictures, as far as I could tell. I stayed in the doorway. I'm here for my box and to return the key. Leah looked at Owen's SUV outside. You brought backup? He's waiting in the car. That's dramatic. No, it's practical. She stepped closer. Can you please come inside? No. Anthony, I'm not staying. Diane said softly. Maybe everyone should have one honest conversation. I looked at her. Everyone except me has apparently had several versions already. Leah flinched. Richard walked toward us. He has a right to be angry. I'm not angry, I said. That was only partly true. I was angry, but it was no longer the loudest emotion. Leah folded her arms across herself. You humiliated me. I held out the spare key. I corrected the record. You sent my father screenshots of private conversations. He called me to accuse me of ruining your reunion. You could have talked to me first. I did. For years. That is not fair. I asked why I was never invited. You called it pressure. I asked why Colin was always there. You called it jealousy. I asked why nobody knew we were serious. You told me not to perform our relationship. How many more conversations was I supposed to have? Leah looked toward her parents, then back at me. I was trying to protect everyone's feelings. From what? From conflict. No. You were protecting yourself from having to tell anyone the truth. That's not what happened. Richard spoke from behind her. Then tell us what happened. Leah turned. Dad, please. No, he said. You used us as the reason Anthony could not come. You told us he chose not to come. Which one is true? I knew it would be uncomfortable. For who? I asked. She looked at me. For everyone. Because Colin was there? Yes. Then why was the answer to remove me instead of asking him not to come? Colin shifted near the patio door. Leah said, he's been part of the family for years. And what was I? My partner. In private. That's not fair. You keep saying that when something is accurate. Her voice shook. I loved you. I believed her. That was part of what made it hurt. I think you did, I said. She seemed surprised. I continued. But you loved what I gave you more than you respected where I stood. Tears filled her eyes. You were my future. Then why did you tell him we weren't serious? She looked at Colin. That message was taken out of context. What context makes it true? I was confused. You asked me about wedding seasons 2 weeks before you told him I wasn't at the family stage. I was trying to keep things calm. You were trying to keep him available. No. Colin spoke quietly. You told me you were figuring out what you really wanted. Leah turned toward him. I was. While planning a future with him? I didn't mean it the way you took it. Colin shook his head. That seems to be the answer for everything. Leah's face hardened. You like being involved. Don't act innocent. I'm not, he said. I like being welcomed. I should have asked more questions. But I'm not going to pretend you didn't encourage it. Richard looked away. Diane sat at the kitchen table and pressed her fingers to her temple. The room was quiet. I finally understood why Leah had worked so hard to keep these people separate. Not because any one lie was impossible to explain. Because the lies could not survive in the same room. Leah turned back to me. You made this so much bigger than it needed to be. No, it was already this big. I just stopped carrying it alone. You could have waited until after the reunion. For what? So we could talk without everyone involved. Everyone was already involved. They just didn't know they were getting different stories. She wiped her cheek angrily. You wanted to punish me. I wanted to leave before you could rewrite what happened. You canceled the proposal over one night. I canceled it because that one night explained the last 4 years. That's ridiculous. Is it? I pointed toward Colin. You told him we were not serious. Then toward her parents. You told them I did not want to be part of the family. Then I touched my chest. You told me they needed time. Leah opened her mouth, but did not speak. I was never competing with him, I said. I was competing with the version of me you invented so nobody would ask what you were doing. She looked down. Diane spoke after a long silence. We thought you didn't care about family. I did. We thought you weren't ready for commitment. I had a ring. Her eyes closed briefly. We made comparisons, she said. That was wrong. You made comparisons based on a story that was convenient for you. Richard nodded once. We owe you an apology. You owe yourself better questions. That sounded harsher than I intended, but I did not take it back. Richard accepted it without arguing. Leah stepped closer again. Can we talk alone? No. Please. No. Why? Private is where you kept changing the story. She stared at me. I love you. I know you believe that. I do. Love is not the part that failed. What does that mean? It means I'm not ending this because I think you felt nothing. I'm ending it because whatever you felt was not enough to make you honest. She covered her mouth and started crying. For almost 4 years, that would have ended the conversation. I would have moved closer. I would have softened my words. I would have tried to make her feel safe enough to tell me what she should have told me without being comforted first. This time, I did not move. I placed the spare key on top of my box. The lease transfer papers are in your email, I said. The amounts you owe are listed with the payment records. I'll pay my share through the date we agreed in writing. After that, the utilities and subscriptions are yours. She lowered her hand. You planned all of this. I responded to what happened. You were waiting for an excuse to leave. No, I was waiting for evidence that staying made sense. That's cruel. What would you call telling 3 different stories? She said nothing. I picked up the box. One more thing, I said. Stop telling people I left because I was jealous of Colin. I never said that. My phone says otherwise. A cousin had texted me that morning. Leah said you walked out because Colin was in a family picture. Is that really what happened? I had replied with one sentence. I left because I was lied about, excluded, and then blamed for noticing. I sent nothing else. I looked at Leah. If someone contacts me with a false version, I will correct it. I will not post about you. I will not send messages to your whole family. But I will not let you turn me into the problem to protect your image. She looked at her parents. Neither defended her. That seemed to hurt her more than anything I had said. I carried the box outside. Owen got out of the SUV and opened the back. As I set the box inside, I heard footsteps behind me. Richard had followed. Anthony. I turned. He held out his hand. I looked at it, then shook it. I am sorry, he said. I know. I should have called you sooner. Before all this. You should have. He nodded. There was no warm reconciliation. No sudden invitation into the family. No promise to fix what could not be fixed. Just an uncomfortable apology from a man who had believed the easiest version of me. That was enough. As I got into the passenger seat, Colin came out of the apartment carrying his small box. He gave me a brief nod. I returned it. Neither of us had won anything. That mattered. For the next week, Leah's messages shifted between apology and accusation. I'm sorry I handled the reunion badly. You never gave me a chance to explain. I was scared of disappointing my parents. You used the ring to make me look heartless. I did love you. You knew Colin was complicated. I thought we had more than this. I responded only when the message involved logistics. Eventually, she sent a longer email. She admitted she had told her parents I disliked gatherings because it was easier than confronting them about Colin. She admitted she minimized our relationship to Colin because she liked feeling that he still cared. She said she never planned to leave me for him. I believe that too. She did not want Colin instead of me. She wanted what each of us gave her. From me, she got stability, intimacy, plans, and a private future. From him, she got familiarity, family approval, and the reassurance that someone from her past still wanted a place near her. She did not choose him over me in the simple way people assumed. She chose her comfort over honesty with both of us. That was worse, because there was no rival I could defeat and no misunderstanding I could solve. I replied once, "Thank you for admitting it. My decision has not changed." Then I blocked her everywhere except email until the lease transfer was complete. The ring sat in Owen's dresser drawer for 2 weeks because I could not stand to look at it. Eventually, I took it back to the jeweler. The return window had passed, but they offered store credit or a reduced buyback. I accepted the loss and took the check. The employee asked whether I wanted to look at anything else. No, I said. Outside, I sat in my car for a while before starting the engine. There was no triumphant feeling. No music swelling in the background. I had loved Leah. I had planned to marry her. I had imagined children with her, holidays, boring weeknights, arguments about paint colors, and 1,000 small days that would never happen. Walking away did not erase that. For a while, it made every memory feel suspicious. Then, slowly, I stopped asking whether every good moment had been fake. Some of them were real. They just were not enough. Brooke helped me find a new place after the lease transfer. Owen helped carry boxes again, this time into rooms that did not contain Leah's things. The first night, I ate takeout on the floor because I had not assembled the table yet. I slept badly. At 3 in the morning, I reached toward the other side of the bed out of habit. No one was there. It hurt. But the next morning, I made coffee and did not have to wonder which version of my life existed outside the room. That was the difference. A few relatives eventually contacted me. Most were awkward. One cousin apologized for assuming I was antisocial. Another said she had always wondered why I never attended anything. Diane sent a short message saying she understood if I did not reply, but wanted me to know she regretted believing I had no interest in their family. I did not use those messages to build a campaign against Leah. I thanked the people who apologized and ignored anyone looking for gossip. Colin stopped attending Leah's family events. Richard told me that months later in a final email about a piece of mail that had gone to the old address. I did not ask why. I assumed Colin had finally recognized that being treated like family was not worth remaining part of a triangle built on half-truths. Leah and I had one final exchange after all the financial matters were settled. She emailed to say she wanted closure. I almost ignored it. Instead, I replied that I would read what she needed to say, but would not meet. Her response was shorter than I expected. I'm sorry I made you feel hidden. I kept thinking I could manage everyone until I was ready to deal with the consequences. I didn't realize managing everyone meant lying to all of you. I know that doesn't fix anything. For the first time, she did not blame my ego, my sensitivity, my timing, or Colin. I wrote back, "You did not make me feel hidden. You hid me. I hope you stop confusing avoidance with kindness." That was the last thing I ever said to her. Some people who heard the story thought sending screenshots to Richard was too much. They said relationship problems should stay between the couple. Normally, I agree. But Leah had already taken our relationship outside the couple. She had let her parents judge me, her relatives repeat things about me, and her ex believe I was barely serious. Then Richard called me to confront me based on those lies. I did not send private details to everyone. I did not expose her to strangers. I sent a few relevant messages to the man who had called to accuse me, because I refused to defend myself against a story built from information he did not have. The evidence did not ruin Leah's image. It removed my face from the role she had written for me. There is a difference between revenge and refusing to carry someone else's lie. I did not leave because Colin attended a reunion. I left because Leah had created a relationship where I was expected to act like a future husband in private while accepting the status of an inconvenient stranger in public. I did not lose to her ex. I stopped playing a game she never admitted she was running. She wanted me out of the room so nobody would feel awkward. I left her with the whole room and the truth. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.